This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, we were dealing with the topic in the last class, DNA isolation and purification. This is a topic which comes in RDNA technology. That's what Unit 13, Section A. Already I have repeated this several times. Now, just for you to, if there are any new participants, first of all, let me go through the participants. Vidushi is a new person. Anjali Kumari is new. Milisha, Shalini, Maunia, Darshana, you were there in the last class. I hope so. So those who are in the last class, this continuation will be pretty easy for you because we are just continuing with the same. In the last class, we have started with isolation and purification of chromosomal DNA. So today we will go for few more alternative methods of the same, and then we will move on to isolation and purification of plasmid DNA, which is the first step in a recombinant DNA experiment. Fine. So those who are in the last class, the process or the protocol is pretty same. There are some differences which I will be explaining in the consecutive slides. But those who are new, it will be a bit difficult for you because you have no idea about chromosomal DNA isolation and purification. Without that, you have to pass on to plasmid DNA isolation and purification. But anyway, just attend the class and let me know if you have any difficulty. I will support you. Fine. So, just a recap from the last class. We started with DNA isolation and purification. It is not in the last class, actually the previous class. That is, I think 2 classes before. So, what are all the various steps? First of all, bacterial. We started with the isolation of chromosomal DNA from bacteria. First step is growing bacterial culture and harvesting. Then pelleting of cells by means of centrifugation. Fine. And then lysis of cells in order to produce the cell extract or in order to get the cell extract, and then followed by purification of DNA, that is removal of contaminants from the cell extract. Cell extract, it may consist of DNA, in addition RNA and proteins. So here the contaminants are nothing but proteins and RNA. So we have to remove proteins and RNA, and we have to get the chromosomal DNA intact. So that's what is the basic thing. Now cell lysis, already we have explained all those things. Physical methods, chemical methods. Mainly for bacteria, we apply chemical methods. We use enzyme, that is lysozyme. Then chemical EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetate, or a combination of both. In addition, we also use a detergent such as SDS, sodium dodecyl sulfate, and each of these agents has their own functions. Already we have explained all those things. Fine. So this is all about the picture. In case of a bacterial cell, since it is having a cell wall and a plasma membrane, we have to disrupt both in order to get the cell, in order to produce the cell extract, and the cell extract has to be purified, remove RNA and proteins and get DNA, get the purified form of DNA. Fine. So once our cell lysis happens, fine, by means of a lysozyme or EDTA and SDS, the next step is purification, that is removal of RNA and proteins. For that we have 2 methods. We can go for either organic treatment with certain organic reagents and enzymes, and also by means of chromatography, that is ion exchange chromatography. So that means in case of organic reagents, first what we will do, we can go for protease enzymes in order to degrade the proteins, or we can apply ribonuclease in order to cleave the RNA. Fine. Followed by addition of organic reagents such as phenol or phenol and chloroform mixture in order to precipitate the DNA. Fine. And separate it by centrifugation. Clear? All those things we had discussed in the last class, so that's why I am going in a fast pace. Then in certain cases the cells will be having high protein content. In that case only we are going for this protease enzyme. Example for protease enzymes are pronase or proteinase K. What is the function of a protease enzyme? They will cleave or they will break polypeptides into peptides, monopeptide or dipeptide, and then we can go for purification. Then if we are using ribonuclease, ribonuclease will act upon ribonucleotide subunits. Okay, so proteins are removed, RNA is removed, and then we have the DNA intact in the vial. Clear? So another method, instead of organic reagent addition, we can go for ion exchange column chromatography, where we are applying the principle of ion exchange column chromatography is based on both electrical charge and electrical affinity. As a result of electrical affinity of biomolecules such as DNA, RNA, and proteins, it will bind to charged matrix or charged resin made up of organic polymers. So once binding will take place, what we will do, we will add the the matrix or resin is the stationary phase, and we will be adding various concentration of salt solutions as the mobile phase, and we will remove one by one. We will first of all we will remove protein, followed by RNA. Finally, we will elute out DNA, and we will purify it, and we will use it for our cloning experiments. Fine. So this is the picture for ion exchange chromatography. Already we have explained in the last class. Then how we are concentrating DNA samples. That was what we have. And another thing we discussed in the last class. So even though if we are going for organic extraction, we will be getting a concentrated DNA sample, but there are various methods. So some other methods you will get more dilute samples. So in case of a dilute DNA sample, you have to concentrate it by means of ethanol precipitation method, so that you will get DNA in the purest and concentrated form, which can be further used for your cloning experiments. Fine. For that you are using absolute ethanol. Okay, so there is a concentration of DNA sample. We have discussed this thing in the last class. And finally we went with measurement of DNA concentration. So how we are measuring DNA concentration? By means of ultraviolet or UV absorbance spectrophotometry. Fine, that's what our method. So we will be going for absorbance measurements in 260 nanometer. And to check the purity of DNA, we can even go for absorbance measurement both in 260 nanometer and 280 nanometer. So in 260 nanometer, if we are getting an absorbance of 1, which means our sample contains 50 mg of double stranded DNA per ml. And if the ratio of measurement at 260 and 280 nanometer is 1:8, it means if it is less than 1:8, it means the preparation is contaminated either with protein or with phenol. So till here we had discussed in the last class. That's why I went in a very fast pace for the newcomers and as well as for those attendees, for your information. So from here onwards we are going to start our today's class. Before going to start our today's class, let me ask you all, do anyone have any doubts in the last class? Anything you want me to explain more, or any clarification, or is that clear till the last class topic? Vidushi, okay, it won't be clear for you because you are a newcomer. So Anjali Kumari also, even I think Smita Kumari also, you newcomers, it will be difficult for you because since you didn't attend the last class. And those who are in the last class, Millie, I think Milisha was there, Maunia, Shalini, Darshana, Preeti. So is that clear? Last class, how we are going for? Yes. Okay. How we are? Thank you, Shalini, Millie, Darshana, and Maunia. So how we are going for a chromosomal DNA isolation, preparation and purification, and even how to check the concentration of DNA. Fine. How to check the purity of DNA. All those things we have discussed. Fine. So now, before going into the isolation and preparation of a plasmid DNA, so so now just keep this methodology in your mind, and then we can continue, because this is the same thing we are going to apply throughout the DNA isolation and purification, whether it is chromosomal DNA, plasmid DNA, or phage DNA. There will be some differences, some variations, or some modifications in the process, but the basic process remains the same. Clear? So you have to have an idea about the chromosomal DNA isolation in order to continue with plasmid DNA isolation or phage DNA isolation. Clear? So now, before going to our plasmid DNA isolation, that is today's topic, let us go through some of other methods used for the preparation of total cell DNA. That is alternate methods. These are all the alternate methods. Alternate methods is, in addition to the methods which we have discussed, we can apply several other methods for the preparation of total cell DNA. So the usual method remains the same. First of all, lysis of cell wall and plasma membrane by means of lysozyme, then EDTA and SDS. Then deproteinization using a protease enzyme, cleavage of RNA using ribonuclease enzyme, then extraction of DNA either by chloroform phenol mixture or by ion exchange column chromatography, concentration by ethanol precipitation, and finally checking the purity or the amount of DNA per ml by means of our spectrophotometry. Clear? So now, although the basic steps are the same based on the type of the cell, so type of the cell plays an important role. For example, in the last two classes we have discussed about the isolation of chromosomal DNA from bacterial cell. What happens if we are going for isolation of chromosomal DNA from a plant cell? Or what change or what variation or what modification we have to make if we are going for the isolation of a DNA from an animal cell? So such modifications we are going to discuss here. These are what we are going to discuss now. Some modifications which has to be introduced based on the type of the cell, whether it is a bacterial cell, plant cell or animal cell. Fine. The major modification needed are at the cell breakage stage. So cell breakage is one important stage where we have to apply the modification. For example, what we have studied, in case of bacterial cell is having a cell wall. Inside the cell wall there is a plasma membrane. So initially, in order to break the cell, we have to select one or two reagents which can act upon both cell wall and plasma membrane. That's why we are going for an enzyme, that is lysozyme, plus a chemical, that is EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetate, in order to act on the cell wall as well as the plasma membrane, so that we can produce the cell lysate. Clear? So at the cell breakage cell, now the structure of a bacterial cell will be quite different from a plant cell. It will be different from an animal cell. So we have to make the modification at the cell breakage stage. Hope it is clear for you. Fine. That is, the chemicals used for disrupting bacterial cell do not usually work with other organisms. For example, see, lysozyme has no effect on plant cell. Okay, we are using lysozyme for bacterial cell. Sir, we can also use SDS for what was the doubt? We can also use SDS for breaking up of cell. Milisha, you are not in the last class? Tell me yes or no. Did you attend my last two classes? Just reply in the comment box. Yes, so in the first class itself I told you, in addition to EDTA, so because EDTA has its own function. Fine. Lysozyme has its own function. Similarly, in addition to EDTA and lysozyme, we are using SDS, detergent. What was the function of detergent? Even I had a multiple choice question last time. I think you forget it. What was the function of SDS? Anybody in the comment box? Can you type? We were using SDS. What was the function of SDS in the preparation of a bacterial cell extract? What was the function of SDS? Anybody? Don't look back. Yeah, very good, Millie. You know that. Shalini and Maunia, removal of lipid molecules. So in case of a bacterial cell, we are using lysozyme, either lysozyme alone or EDTA alone, or a combination of lysozyme and EDTA together with SDS. Depends upon the cell. For gram-negative cell, you will have another concentration. For gram-positive, you will have another. So here you have to study theoretically. You don't have to go to the protocol level here. Just make sure. Yeah, EDTA is also used in denaturing page. Yeah, polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis for the determination. Yeah, yes. It's an additional point. Yeah, true. Yeah, okay, you have to recall. That's what I told you. All of you, you have to keep the protocol or the procedure of bacterial cell lysate preparation in mind always, and learn this thing. Otherwise, you cannot get this. You cannot catch this. Fine. So in bacterial cell lysate, as already all our participants have mentioned, we are using various chemicals. For example, lysozyme is an enzyme which we apply in bacterial cell extract preparation. Fine. Whereas it has no effect on plant cell. For example, if we are using the same lysozyme for the plant cell, we cannot get any extract. So what we can do now, physical techniques. So what are all the physical techniques we were using in bacterial cell? I have mentioned 1 or 2 techniques while taking the class. Can anybody recall what were the physical techniques we were using in bacterial cell preparation? Physical, not chemical. Chemical techniques involve lysozyme, SDS, then EDTA and all. Yeah, very good, Shalini. Ultrasonication. I have even explained what is ultrasonication. Sonicator. Ultrasonication is one equipment. It is like a pointed equipment. It is like something like a centrifuge which can rotate very fast. It is having a sharp pin, sharp edge bead. Yeah, all those things. We can take the bacterial cell culture and we can add some beads into that, some metal beads or whatever. Then we can keep the ultrasonicator inside, so it will be having some magnetic effect. As the ultrasonicator rotates, the bacterial cell culture will also rotate and the cell lysis will take place. You can just go for just type in Google ultrasonicator in Google image or in Google video. You can see how ultrasonicator is working. Fine, so you can visualize. So in case of bacterial cell preparation, we were using physical techniques such as ultrasonicator, whereas for plant cells, what we are doing, we are using grinding frozen material with a mortar and pestle. So in case of bacterial cells, we were using ultrasonicator, whereas in case of plant cells, we are mainly using mortar and pestle as a physical technique for cell lysis. Now, plant cell is also having a cell wall. It is also having a membrane inside. Whereas most animal cells have no cell wall. So this is the peculiarity of animal cell. Most animal cells have no cell wall. Hence, it can be lysed simply by treating with a detergent. So in case of bacterial cell, for physical method, we were using ultrasonication. For chemical method, we were using EDTA plus lysozyme plus SDS. In plant cell, for physical method, we were using mortar and pestle. Mortar and pestle, all of you know what is mortar and pestle. Grinding frozen material with a mortar and pestle. Whereas in animal cell, we are using only the detergent. So what is the detergent we are using for animal cell lysis? Can anybody name? Can anybody name a detergent used for animal cell lysis? Animal cell lysis. Name a detergent used for animal cell lysis. Can anybody name? It is a detergent. Now you can very well tell me. We have learned about a detergent in bacterial cell lysis. It is the same detergent. Can you tell me? Very good, SDS, Maunia. Very good. Sodium dodecyl sulfate. It is the detergent which we are using mainly for animal cell lysis. Also, we are using it for bacteria. So like this you have to learn. For each cell type, what is the technique? You can get multiple choice questions as well. Fine. So that is fine. Now another important consideration is the biochemical content of the cell. So first thing what we considered, the cell structure. What is the cell structure? Bacterial cell structure. Yeah, Anjali Kumari, thank you. Plant cell structure, animal cell structure based on bacterial cell structure. Next, what we are going to consider? We are going to consider the biochemical content of cell. What do you mean by biochemical content of cell? For example, while we were learning the bacterial cell lysis, I already explained you, once we prepare the bacterial cell lysate or bacterial cell extract, it contains DNA, RNA and proteins. So that is the biochemical content of bacterial cell. Whereas plant tissues often contain large amount of carbohydrate. Okay, so in addition to our DNA, RNA and proteins, we have to deal with carbohydrates also when we are going for plant cell extract preparation. Fine. So biochemical content of cells from which DNA is extracted. For example, in case of bacterial cell, the biochemical content is nothing but DNA plus RNA plus proteins, whereas in plant cell the biochemical content is nothing but DNA plus RNA plus proteins plus additionally it will have carbohydrates. So now we have to go for a method by which we can remove the carbohydrates also. Now this is this method. A different method makes use of a detergent. So here also we are using a detergent for plant cell extract. What is the detergent we are using? Cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide. Short form is CTAB. What is CTAB? Cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide. So here, since the plant cell contains large amount of carbohydrate, we are using a different approach. That is, here we are using a detergent called CTAB. What is that CTAB? Cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide, CTAB. What is the function of CTAB? It forms an insoluble complex with nucleic acid. So what is the function of CTAB? CTAB, if it is treated with nucleic acid, that is DNA, it can form an insoluble complex which is not soluble. Fine. That is, when CTAB is added to a plant cell extract, the nucleic acid CTAB complex, that is the insoluble complex between nucleic acid and CTAB is formed and it will be precipitated, leaving carbohydrate, protein and other contaminants in the supernatant. Very good. So this is the function of CTAB. So CTAB is mainly applicable in the preparation of plant cell extract. So what is happening? When we are adding CTAB to a plant cell extract, CTAB will combine with nucleic acid to form an insoluble CTAB nucleic acid complex which will be precipitated. As a result, all other contaminants such as carbohydrate, protein, everything will remain within the supernatant. Fine. Now the precipitate is then collected by centrifugation and resuspended in 1 molar sodium chloride, which causes the complex to break down. Thus, the nucleic acids are concentrated by ethanol precipitation and the RNA is removed by ribonuclease treatment. So that is what we are doing in case of plant cells. In case of plant cells, we are using a detergent called CTAB, cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide. What is the function of CTAB? CTAB will combine with plant cells, with the nucleic acids of plant cells to form an insoluble CTAB nucleic acid complex which will be precipitated out. As a result, all other components or contaminants such as carbohydrate, protein, everything will remain within the supernatant. Now, the precipitate, that is the CTAB nucleic acid precipitate, is collected by centrifugation and then resuspended in 1 molar sodium chloride. As a result, the CTAB nucleic acid complex will break down. Thus, the nucleic acids or the free nucleic acids are concentrated by means of ethanol precipitation and any RNA contamination is removed by ribonuclease treatment. As a result, we have purest DNA, purest plant cell DNA for our future recombinant DNA experiments. Clear? What is happening? So I can explain you in some picture. Fine. So this is the picture how CTAB method for purification of plant DNA. You can see here what is happening. Fine. The first step, cell extract, which consists of DNA, everything. Cell extract means extract from the cell, which consists of DNA, RNA, proteins, and carbohydrates. It is treated with the chemical CTAB. Here you can see CTAB, addition of CTAB. As a result, what is happening? precipitated nucleic acid CTAB complex. Nucleic acid or the DNA will combine with CTAB to form an insoluble precipitated nucleic acid CTAB complex. Now, this is centrifuged. As a result, the nucleic acid CTAB complex will remain as the pellet, and the supernatant consists of our contaminants, carbohydrates, proteins, etc., which will be discarded. So the supernatant is discarded. Now, the complex nucleic acid CTAB complex is then resuspended in 1 molar sodium chloride. Fine. As a result of this resuspension of nucleic acid CTAB complex in 1 molar sodium chloride, the nucleic acid will become free from the CTAB complex. The bond will be broken. And finally, the free nucleic acid, the purest form, is precipitated by means of absolute ethanol precipitation. And if there is any RNA contamination is removed by ribonuclease treatment. Finally, we are getting pure DNA in the append of tube. This is what we are doing in the case of plant DNA preparation. Clear? So that's about the plant DNA preparation. Fine. Now, is it clear up to this point? What is happening? Yes. Yeah, good. Thank you, Vidushi. So finally, now we are, thank you, Shanmati. Yes, thank you, Darshana. So we are continuing with the alternate methods. Now, so because we have a biochemical content difference between the cells, that is between bacterial cell, plant cell and animal cell, this is one of the reasons why we are using ion exchange chromatography widely. So because in ion exchange chromatography, as we have studied in the last class, this ion exchange chromatography is basically based on the charge, electrical charge and electrical affinity. So there is nothing, no chemical reaction or any chemical disintegration, nothing is taking place in ion exchange chromatography. It is purely depending upon the electrical charge as well as the electrical affinity. So as a result of this difference in biochemical cell, for most of the cells we can go for ion exchange chromatography for the separation and purification of our chromosomal DNA. Clear? Now, similarly, you have got other method. Different methods are there. So one method we have studied about treatment using CTAB, cetyl, dimethyl, fine, all those things. Now another method, a similar method involves. So here we are using a compound called guanidinium thiocyanate. So instead of CTAB, in this new method we are using a compound called guanidinium thiocyanate. Now, what is the importance of guanidinium thiocyanate, or what are the functions? It has two properties useful for DNA purification. So when we are using guanidinium thiocyanate, it is having two functions, so two properties which is useful in DNA purification. What are they? First of all, it denatures and dissolves all biochemicals other than nucleic acid. Very good. If we are using guanidinium thiocyanate, what is happening? For example, if a cell extract is treated with guanidinium thiocyanate, instead of DNA or apart from DNA, all other biochemicals are denatured and dissolved. For example, if we are adding guanidinium thiocyanate into a plant cell extract, plant cell extract is having DNA, RNA, carbohydrate and proteins. DNA will remain there and guanidinium thiocyanate will denature and dissolve all other contaminants such as RNA, proteins and carbohydrates. So it's a very good function. Fine. Hence, it is used to release DNA from any type of cell or tissue. We can use guanidinium thiocyanate with bacterial cell, plant cell or even animal cell. Why? Because it has the first function or the most important nature of the chemical guanidinium thiocyanate is that it denatures and dissolves all other biochemical molecules such as RNA, proteins and carbohydrates, and it will keep nucleic acid or DNA intact. Then another property is, in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate, DNA binds tightly to silica particles. So that is another function of guanidinium thiocyanate. First function is guanidinium thiocyanate will denature and dissolve all other biochemical molecules except nucleic acids in a cell extract. Very good. Second function is, in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate, DNA or the nucleic acid will bind tightly to silica particles. As a result, it is easy to recover the DNA from the denatured mixture of biochemicals. So, recovery of, so if we are using guanidinium thiocyanate, purification is also easy, recovery is also easy. How guanidinium thiocyanate will purify? Guanidinium thiocyanate, if we are adding it into a cell extract, it will denature and dissolve all other biochemical molecules such as RNA, proteins and carbohydrates, and DNA will only remain in the extract. That is one point. Second point is, in addition, guanidinium thiocyanate has got another additional function. That is, in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate, DNA molecules or the nucleic acid biochemicals will bind tightly to silica particles. As a result, recovery of DNA is very easy from the mixture of biochemicals or from a cell extract. Clear? So, now how we are performing this protocol? Now, one way is to add silica directly to the cell extract. So, what we can do? We can take the cell extract, add silica in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate. So what happens? DNA will bind with the silica and guanidinium thiocyanate will go and it will degrade and dissolve all other contaminant biomolecules such as proteins, then carbohydrates and RNA. Now, it is more convenient to use a chromatography column. So usually when we are using this method or when we are using guanidinium thiocyanate method, we use a chromatography column. So how we are proceeding? First of all, we will take a column like last time. The last time we have studied about chromatography, ion exchange column chromatography. Similarly, here also there will be a column made up of plastic or any other inert material. Fine. Now we will add the matrix, or the column will be filled with silica. Silica is the stationary phase or matrix in the column. Then the cell extract is added to the column in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate. What is happening? Since guanidinium thiocyanate is there, DNA will bind with the silica and it will remain in the column. Yes. Whereas all other biochemicals are denatured by means of guanidinium thiocyanate, which will pass through the column. After washing away of the last contaminants with guanidinium thiocyanate, DNA is recovered. How DNA recovery is happening? By adding water. We will add water so that DNA will be recovered, which destabilizes the interaction between DNA and the silica. So the method is very simple here. Similarly, like ion exchange chromatography, column chromatography, already we studied in the last class. Here also we will be having a chromatography column, a column made up of an inert material such as plastic or something. What is the stationary phase? Here the stationary phase is silica. That is, the column is filled with silica matrix. Fine. Then we are adding the cell extract, which consists of DNA, RNA, proteins and even carbohydrates in case of a plant cell extract. In the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate, what is happening? DNA will tightly bind to the silica and it will remain in the silica, whereas guanidinium thiocyanate will denature and dissolve all other biomolecules such as proteins, RNA and even carbohydrates if it is present. Fine. Finally, what we will do? We will add water so that the DNA, which is already bind with the silica, it will be disturbed and destabilized and we will get the DNA out of the column. Clear? This is what happening when we are going for this method, that is using guanidinium thiocyanate method. Then, okay, we will move on to the next slide. So this is nothing but the picture, DNA purification by means of guanidinium thiocyanate. How we are doing? How we do initially? First of all, see, DNA is attached to the silica particles in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate. Clear? So this is nothing but our column with silica particles. So what all things are there? Now this is the column with silica particles in the presence of guanidinium thiocyanate. When we are adding cell extract, DNA will only remain in the column, whereas this denatured biochemical means nothing but RNA, proteins and carbohydrates. Everything will be denatured by guanidinium thiocyanate, which will be collected and discarded. Finally, see, we are adding water. Why we are adding water? The DNA is already bind with the silica in the column, so we have to remove the DNA by adding water. Water will destabilize the bond between DNA and silica, and we are getting clear DNA in the vial. So this is also, in addition to the other method, addition of guanidinium thiocyanate is also recommended for preparation of DNA extract. Clear? So these are all the alternate methods which we are using for chromosomal DNA preparation. Fine. First method is by using cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide, CTAB, and another method is by using guanidinium thiocyanate. So that's all about the preparation of bacterial or preparation of bacterial chromosomal DNA extract. And now we are passing on to our next topic, preparation of plasmid DNA. So this is also from the bacterial, because plasmids are mainly present in bacteria. So before going into the plasmid DNA, is this clear, the last two methods which I have discussed in addition to the first method, widely accepted method? Now we have discussed two more methods. Is that clear for all of you? Anything you want me to explain in those methods? Yes, Vidushi, Shalini, Priya, how many participants are there? I want to hear from everyone. Dole, you are a new participant. I am not sure whether you are following my class. Maunia was there. Priya are also, I am not sure. Priyama, Kumari, Shalini, Shanmati, Smita. So those who were there in the last class, or those who have gone through the last classes, it will be easy for you. But those who are newly joined, I am sorry, because without getting an idea about the chromosomal DNA isolation, it will be difficult. But okay, now I am going to deal with a new topic from now onwards. So please follow this one. Fine. Regarding the chromosomal DNA, we can discuss later. From the now we are going to start the next new topic. Okay, thank you for your response, all of you. So now the next topic is preparation of plasmid DNA. So already we had discussed what are plasmids. Plasmids are nothing but extra chromosomal DNA molecules which is present in many bacterial cells. And what is the importance of plasmid? The most important factor about plasmid is that they are widely used as cloning vectors. What do you mean by a cloning vector? A cloning vector is nothing but we are using plasmid DNA as a medium to transfer a foreign gene from the donor organism to the recipient organism. So as a result, if we want to perform, or if we want to prepare a proper cloning vector, we need the vector. We have to isolate the vector. So vector is nothing but our plasmid DNA. So here, while preparing chromosomal DNA, our aim was to get a pure form of chromosomal DNA by removing any other biomolecule contamination such as RNA, proteins, and even carbohydrates. When we are going for plasmid DNA preparation, our aim is to get the purest preparation of a plasmid DNA, thereby removing all other contaminants, which also include chromosomal DNA, RNA, proteins, carbohydrates, etc. Clear? Now, purification of plasmids from the culture of bacteria involves the same strategy. So that means the procedure is almost the same. That is, a culture of cells containing plasmids are grown in liquid medium. Similarly, first of all, we have to get a bacterial culture grown in a proper medium. It has to be harvested. Then cell extract has to be prepared by breaking the cell wall and the plasma membrane. Then the protein and RNA are removed, and the DNA probably is concentrated by ethanol precipitation. So here we have to make sure the DNA which we concentrate is plasmid DNA, not the chromosomal DNA, because if there is any chromosomal contamination in the plasmid DNA preparation, then our recombinant DNA experiment will be a great failure. Okay, now there is an important distinction between plasmid DNA and the preparation of total DNA. So here we are going to prepare plasmid purification and not total cell DNA. So when we take the total cell DNA of a bacteria, it consists of chromosomal DNA, that is the main genetic material of the bacteria, plus plasmid DNA. Whereas when we are going for preparation of only plasmid DNA, we will remove the chromosomal DNA. Clear? It is always necessary to separate the plasmid DNA from the large amount of bacterial chromosomal DNA. Very, very important. Fine. It is difficult, but essential to be used as a cloning vector. If we have to use plasmid DNA as a cloning vector, we have to make sure that our preparation is not having any chromosomal DNA contamination. Excuse me. Okay. So if we are going for plasmid DNA preparation, we have to make sure our plasmid DNA preparation is free of any chromosomal DNA contamination. Fine. Now, that is the presence of smallest amount of contaminating bacterial DNA in a gene cloning experiment can lead to undesirable result, which means we went for plasmid DNA isolation and purification. And if our preparation is having even a minute level of chromosomal DNA contamination, then our gene cloning experiment will be a failure. So that's why we have to make sure we have to adopt a method by which we go for plasmid DNA isolation and purification as well as concentration without any chromosomal DNA contamination. Clear? Now, several methods are used for the removal of bacterial DNA. Fine. It all depends upon the physical differences between the plasmid DNA and the chromosomal DNA. So, which method we are going to select for the preparation of plasmid DNA? It mainly depends upon the physical differences, mainly based on two important differences. So, the method which we are going to select for the preparation of a plasmid DNA is based on two important physical differences between the plasmid DNA and the chromosomal DNA. The most important difference is size. Difference in size. So what is the difference in size? What we have to tell about that? The largest plasmids are only 8% of E. coli chromosome, and most are much smaller than this, which means plasmid DNA, when we compare the size of a plasmid DNA with a chromosomal DNA, the size of a plasmid DNA is very, very small when we compare with chromosomal DNA. For example, in the case of E. coli cell, plasmid DNA will be only 8% of the total cell DNA. Clear? So here we can apply certain techniques which can separate small DNA molecules from large ones. So since plasmid DNA is small than chromosomal DNA, few techniques we can use can separate small DNA molecules from. So from a bacterial cell, from a bacterial total cell DNA, if we are removing or if we are separating small DNA molecule from large DNA molecule, we have separated plasmid DNA from the chromosomal DNA. Clear? That is the logic behind this thing. Since plasmid DNA is smaller than the chromosomal DNA, from a total bacterial cell DNA, if we are isolating and purifying small DNA molecules, definitely we are isolating and purifying plasmid DNA molecules. Clear? That is the thing. Fine. We are moving on to the next slide. Yes, so first factor is based on the size. What is the next factor? In addition, plasmids and bacterial DNA differ in conformation. So apart from size, so first factor is size. Second factor is conformation. So what do you mean by conformation of a DNA? Anybody, any idea without looking on the slide? What do you mean by conformation of a DNA? Size of a DNA, all of us know. Depends upon kilobytes or kilodaltons or whatever. KD, kilodalton. Plasmid DNA is smaller than chromosomal DNA. Anybody? Yes, Shalini, structural arrangement. Yeah. Which means structural arrangement. Can you make it more clear, Shalini? Or any other answer from any other participants? What do you mean by conformation of a DNA? Shape? Yeah, to some extent. Priya, agree with you. Shape. Shape is nothing but the conformation. So what could be the shape of the DNA? What could be? What could be two different or two or three different structural arrangements of a DNA? Linear, very good, Vidushi. Linear, it can be either linear or it can be circular. Excellent, excellent, excellent. That's it. Whether it is linear or circular, that's what all about conformation. Fine. That is, it refers to overall spatial configuration, how it is appears in the space, with the two simplest conformations being linear and circular. Now, plasmids and bacterial chromosomes are circular in nature. Mostly, the DNAs are circular in nature. Whether it is plasmid DNA or bacterial chromosomal DNA, they are circular in nature. But there is an exception. During preparation of the cell extract, the chromosomal DNA is always broken to give linear fragment. Fine. So that is one method. So that is another thing. So the first method is, since plasmid DNA is smaller than chromosomal DNA, we have to select a method by which we can isolate and purify small DNA, so that we are doing it only with plasmid DNA and not with chromosomal DNA. Second method is nothing but the conformation or the configuration, spatial configuration. Now, the simplest one, nothing but linear or circular. Most of the chromosomal DNA and the plasmid DNA are circular in nature, but when we are going for a cell extract preparation, the larger chromosomal DNA can broke down to give linear fragments. Hence, we can also go for a method for separating circular from linear molecules. So, if we are selecting a method for separation of circular DNA from linear DNA, definitely we will get pure circular plasmid DNA from broken linear chromosomal DNA. So that is another method. So based on the size, based on the conformation, we can go for techniques. Fine? Good. Now we are going one by one. First of all, separation based on size. How we are going to separate plasmids based on the size. Now the usual stage at which size fractionation is during preparation of cell extract. So we are going for the preparation of cell extract and purification of plasmid DNA based on size. Under controlled condition, only a minimum amount of chromosomal DNA breakage will occur. That already we have seen in the last procedure. Fine. Resulting DNA fragments are still very larger than plasmids. Can be removed with cell debris by centrifugation. So what we can do here? The bacterial. So here we have to identify one thing. What? Bacterial chromosome is physically attached to the cell wall or cell envelope. So this is one factor. When we are going for the separation of plasmid DNA from chromosomal DNA, we have to know one factor. What is that important factor? The chromosomal DNA or the bacterial chromosomal DNA is physically attached with the cell wall or cell envelope, whereas plasmid DNAs are always present in the cell freely as circular forms. So when we are going for our chemical applications, what is going to happen? First of all, cell wall will be broken, plasma membrane will be broken. Even though cell wall is broken, the chromosomal DNA will be attached with the cell wall, whereas the plasmid DNA will be free within the cell in a circular form. So once the chromosomal DNA is broken, it will give larger linear fragments. As a result, it is easy for us to separate smaller circular plasmids from larger linear fragments, since these larger linear fragments will always remain with the cell wall or the cell wall debris. Clear? This is what we have to identify when we are going for separation of plasmid DNA based on size. Hence, fragments of chromosome will sediment with the cell debris if these attachments are not broken. So that's what. Now we will see how we are going to start the procedure, or what is the protocol for this. Fine? Yeah. Yes, that's what. We are going to separate the plasmids based on size. So it is carried out very gently to prevent the wholesale breakage of bacterial DNA, for example, for E. coli and other species. Fine. Now here you can see the structure. First of all, see the red color here is the chromosomal DNA. This is the chromosomal DNA, red color. which is attached with the cell wall, whereas the plasmids are here circular, which is in the free stage. Clear? Now, controlled lysis is performed, that is lysis of cell under controlled condition. For example, when we were not going for controlled lysis, what we were doing in the first case? In the first case, for the lysis of cell wall, we were going for EDTA or lysozyme or a combination of both with SDS. Here, we are going for treatment with EDTA and lysozyme in the presence of sucrose, which prevent the cell from bursting immediately. So here, in this case, we are using the same chemical, that is EDTA plus EDTA and lysozyme, but only in the presence of 25% sucrose. Why we are adding 25% sucrose here? If we are using only EDTA and lysozyme, there is a possibility that the bacterial cell wall will be broken, or it will be burst open immediately, so that the chromosomal DNA will be broken up, and then it will be difficult for us to separate it, even though it is larger than the plasmid DNA. Here we are going for controlled condition. We are gently breaking the cell wall. That's why we are adding 25% sucrose. Fine. So treatment with EDTA and lysozyme in the presence of 25% sucrose will permit gentle opening of the cell wall. Fine. So instead of breakage, here spiroplasts are formed. You can see spiroplasts. See, spiroplasts. So what is spiroplast? So once we add lysozyme plus EDTA in the presence of 25% sucrose, cell wall will be opened gently rather than immediately, which will lead to the formation of spiroplasts. What are spiroplasts? Cells with partially degraded cell wall that retain an intact cytoplasmic membrane. You can see in the picture. See, in the first picture, the cell is like this. It's a whole cell which is covered with a whole cell wall and a plasma membrane. Here you can see the cell wall is broken. You can see gaps here. See, cell wall is broken, but the chromosomal DNA is still attached to the broken cell wall. Also, the plasma membrane will remain intact. This cell is called spiroplast. That is, in spiroplast, the cell membrane or the plasma membrane will be intact, whereas the cell wall will be disrupted. So, spiroplasts are cells with partially degraded cell wall with an intact plasma membrane. Fine. So, this is about partial lysis. So, in the first step, using lysozyme, EDTA and 25% sucrose, we have gone for the partial lysis of bacterial cell. Now, cell lysis is now induced by adding a non-ionic detergent such as Triton X100. So here we are using the detergent Triton X100. In the previous case, while preparing chromosomal DNA, we used the detergent SDS, sodium dodecyl sulfate, whereas in this case, we are using the enzyme Triton X100. Why we are using? So there, SDS was an ionic detergent, whereas Triton X100 is a non-ionic detergent, because ionic detergents such as SDS can cause chromosomal breakage. Okay, if we are using SDS here, there is a possibility that chromosomal DNA breakage may happen. In order to avoid that, instead of ionic detergent SDS, sodium dodecyl sulfate, here cell lysis is brought about by means of a non-ionic detergent such as Triton X100. Clear? Now, as we use Triton X100, it causes very little breakage of the bacterial DNA. As a result, centrifugation will leave a clear lysate consisting almost entirely of plasmid DNA. Yes. So after adding Triton X100, plasma membrane will be also broken, and we are getting the cell extract. See, but you can see in the cell extract what we can see in the cell extract. For example, in the cell extract, what we can see? We can see here. See, in this portion, the DNA, the chromosomal DNA remains with the cell wall as a complex. See, so that after centrifugation, together with the cell debris or the cell wall debris, the chromosomal DNA, large DNA, chromosomal DNA will always settle, whereas in the supernatant you will get a clear lysate, a clear supernatant which contains only plasmids. That's why we are making some modification to our previous method. In the previous method, we were using lysozyme plus EDTA or lysozyme or EDTA or even a combination of both. Whereas in this method, we are using lysozyme plus EDTA in the presence of 25% sucrose for a gentle breakage of the cell wall. As a result, scleroblast is formed with intact plasma membrane but a disrupted cell wall on which the chromosomal DNA is attached. After that, instead of ionic detergent such as SDS, which may cause chromosomal DNA breakage, we are using here a non-ionic detergent such as Tritonex 100 for the preparation of plasma DNA, which will lead to gentle cell lysis. As a result, we are getting a cell extract with plasmid DNA and chromosomal DNA, which is still attached with the portions of cell wall, and this could be settled by means of a proper centrifugation, whereas the supernatant or the clear lysate contains plasmid DNA. So this is what we are using. This method we are using for the preparation of plasmid DNA based on size. Fine. So now, even though we use this method, there are some exceptions. A clear lysate will retain some chromosomal DNA. There is a possibility we won't get 100% plasma DNA in the lysate. We may have some chromosomal DNA contamination. Also, if the plasmids themselves are large molecules, sometimes plasmid can also be, so because sometimes in case if the chromosomal DNA is broken into, if there is a change in the concentration of the reagent which we added and the chromosomal DNA is broken down into very smaller fragments, in that case plasma DNA may remain as large molecules. They may also sediment with the cell debris. In that case, plasma DNA can also be sedimented with the cell debris. So as a result, this method, that is the size fractionation method, is not sufficient. We have to go for some alternate methods. So first method, that is size fractionation, is only depends upon the size of the chromosome. That is based on the size. Based on the size, we are going for size fractionation method. Clear? So next method is based on the conformation. That is, okay, we will complete one more topic. We will complete this next topic also. The time is already 7. No problem. Another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I will complete. Fine. So for the preparation of plasmid DNA, already we have gone through the first method, that is separation based on size. Fine. Now we are going for the second method, that is separation based on conformation. That is whether it is circular or linear. That's what separation based on conformation. Now, most plasmids exist in the cell as supercoiled molecules. Fine. So both, we have already told, both plasmids and chromosomal DNA may occur as almost circular in shape. Plasmids are more circular, whereas chromosomal DNA can also be circular. Whereas in addition to circular, plasmids may appear as supercoiled molecules. Now, why the supercoiling is happening? Supercoiling occurs because the double helix of plasmid DNA is partially unwound during plasmid replication process by topoisomerase enzyme. So why supercoiling of plasmid DNA takes place? Because the plasmid DNA may be partially unwound, not fully unwound. When plasmid DNA replication takes place, enzymes called topoisomerases will act upon plasmids, which will lead to the partial unwounding, not completely unwound. Completely unwound means you will be getting two separate strands. No, it will be partial unwound. That's why plasmid DNA occurs as supercoiled molecules. Fine. Now, the supercoiled conformation can be maintained only if the polynucleotide strands are intact. So two types of, so already we know plasmids may appear as supercoiled molecules. It will be in two shapes. First shape is nothing but covalently closed circular DNA, CCC DNA. Covalently closed circular DNA. In that case, both the DNA strands are intact without any breakage. Whereas If there is any breakage in any of the single strands, you will get another conformation, that is open circular or OC conformation. Fine. Plasmid DNA usually appear as circular molecules. It may exist in cell as supercoiled molecules due to partial unwinding during replication process by enzymes, topomerase enzymes. Now, within this supercoiled conformation, if both the nucleotide strands, because they are double-stranded molecule, if both the polynucleotide strands are intact without any space or gap, the plasmid will appear as covalently closed circular DNA, triple C DNA. But if there is any breakage in any of the DNA strands, it will take another alternative conformation, and this shape is called open circular or OC conformation. Now, supercoiling is important in plasmid preparation because supercoiled molecules can be fairly easily separated from non-supercoiled DNA. So this is the factor we are using for the preparation of plasmid DNA on the basis of conformation. So on the basis of shape, already we have seen what we are doing. Now on the basis of conformation, since plasmids are supercoiled molecules, it is very easy to separate supercoiled plasmids from non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA. So for this we are using two different methods. Fine. So in the next slide you can see both. This is nothing but the two conformations of plasmid DNA. You already know. The first one is supercoiled. See, you can see both plasmid strands are intact. There is no hole or no shape or no broken strand. This is nothing but supercoiled form. That is, in supercoiled form, both strands are intact. Whereas open supercoiled form, see, this is open supercoiled form. You can see a nick. You can see a space in one of the strands. In open supercoiled form, one or both strands are nicked. So that's what about the conformation of plasmid DNA. Clear? Now, so based on the conformation, we can go for application of two methods. Fine? For the separation of plasmid DNA. Fine? So we'll complete this topic. The first method, one method we will complete today, and the next method we will continue in the next class. Fine? So the first method, based on the conformation. Based on the conformation of plasmid DNA, we are using two methods for the isolation and preparation of plasmid DNA. The first method is called alkaline denaturation. Okay, the first method is alkaline denaturation. So here what we are doing. Now, the basis of this technique is that there is a narrow pH range at which non-supercoiled DNA is denatured, whereas supercoiled plasmids are not. Okay, very good. So what is the principle of alkaline denaturation method? Alkaline denaturation method is a method used for the preparation of plasmid DNA, isolation and purification of plasmid DNA based on the difference in the conformation. Fine. The principle of this method is that there is a narrow pH range at which non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA is denatured, whereas supercoiled plasmid DNA is not denatured. So we are applying a pH range, or we are applying a narrow pH range in which the non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA is denatured or dissolved and disintegrated, whereas supercoiled plasmids are not denatured. They will remain intact. What is the procedure? That is, if sodium hydroxide is added to a cell extract or clear lysate and the pH is adjusted to 12 to 12.5, the hydrogen bonding in non-supercoiled DNA is broken. As a result, non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA is denatured. It causes the double helix to unwind and two polynucleotide chains to separate, which means nothing but so what we are doing, we are taking the clear lysate or cell extract. Into that, we are adding sodium hydroxide with a pH range of 12 to 12.5. In this pH range, in the presence of sodium hydroxide, the hydrogen bonding in non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA is broken. As a result, the double helix is unwound and two polynucleotide chains are separated. Fine. Then, followed by this, acid is added. If acid is added, these denatured bacterial DNA reaggregate into a tangled mass. First of all, we add sodium hydroxide with a pH range of 12 to 12.5. The hydrogen bond in non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA is broken and the strands will be separated. Followed by this, we are adding acid. Once acid is added, these denatured bacterial strands are reaggregated into a mass. It will be in a precipitated form. It will be converted into a mass. Fine. Now this insoluble network. Now, so that means it has become insoluble. It has become separated, segregated, or disintegrated, which can be pelleted. Now it can be pelleted by centrifugation, whereas plasmid DNA will remain in the supernatant. Clear? Now there is an additional advantage for this method. That is, under some circumstances, for example, if we are using SDS for cell lysis and sodium acetate for neutralization, so in some cases we are using Tritonex. Some cases even SDS, some protocol will apply SDS for DNA separation. In that case, what is happening? Most of the protein and RNA also becomes insoluble. So as a result, we can also remove, together with chromosomal DNA, we can also remove the proteins and RNA by means of centrifugation. Fine. Also purification by organic extraction or column chromatography may therefore not needed while we are going for this alkaline denaturation method. Okay. So alkaline denaturation method is nothing but the first method used for the preparation of plasmid DNA based on conformation. That is, plasmid DNA usually occurs in a supercoiled form. Fine. Now, we are applying a narrow pH range in which the supercoiled plasmid DNA will remain intact, whereas the non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA will be denatured, disintegrated and separated. So here, first step, we are adding sodium hydroxide and maintaining the pH 12 to 12.5. As a result, hydrogen bonding is broken in the non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA. In the next step, we are adding an acid. As a result, it will be converted into this broken non-supercoiled chromosomal DNA will be converted or reaggregated into a mass, which is removed by centrifugation. As a result, plasmid DNA will only remain in the clear supernatant. Now, in certain cases, there is an additional advantage for this method. For example, if we are performing cell lysis by means of SDS and neutralization by means of sodium acetate, followed by alkaline denaturation, most of the protein and RNA will also remain insoluble. As a result, centrifugation will remove protein, RNA and denatured insoluble chromosomal DNA. As a result, the pure plasmid DNA will only remain within the supernatant, and as a result, we don't have to go for further purification by means of organic extraction or column chromatography. Clear? That is about the first method, preparation of plasmid DNA by alkaline denaturation based on the conformation. Clear? So the last slide of today's class, picture how we are going for alkaline denaturation. You can see from the picture what is happening. So in the first step, this is nothing but the non-supercoiled linear DNA. This is the supercoiled plasmid DNA. First, we are adding sodium hydroxide followed by pH 12 to 12.5. Hydrogen bonding. You can see the steps. These steps are nothing but the hydrogen bonds between the two strands of chromosomal DNA, which is broken down, and the strands are separated one by one. See, you can see 1, 2, 3 strands of single-stranded linear DNA. Here it is just linear DNA with hydrogen bond. Here it is single-stranded linear DNA without hydrogen bond, whereas supercoiled plasmids will remain the same in both cases. Followed by, we are adding, yes, the pH is converted into 7 by adding an acid. So the linear DNA, the single-stranded linear DNA is converted into a mixture, a tangled mass. You can see the mass. Whereas here also, in this step also, the plasmid DNA will remain intact. Centrifugation will lead to the pelleting of linear DNA molecules, whereas supercoiled plasmids will remain in the supernatant in the same form, which can be further separated out. Clear? So that is about the first method for isolation and purification of plasmids based on conformation. The next method we will go in the second class. Fine. Before winding up the session, let us go to the multiple choice questions today. Okay. Now, I will read out the multiple choice question, followed by I will go for 4 options, and I will call a name. Okay, don't answer in the comment box. I will call a name from all the participants: Darshana, Maunia, Priya, Prema, Kumari, Shalini, Shanmati, Sudha, and Vidushi. I will call a name. So that person has to give me the answer in the chat box. Okay, in the multiple choice question, I will read the question, I will read the instructions, and I will call a name from the roll. So that person has to give me the answer in chat box. Clear? So we are going to start. Our first question: dash is used for the preparation of an animal cell extract. Question once again: dash is used for the preparation of an animal cell extract. Option A, Tritonex. Option B, SDS. Option C, lysozyme. Option D, none of the above. I want the answer from Shanmati. Can you give me the answer? Shanmati. Dash is used for the preparation of an animal cell extract. Shanmati, can you give me the answer? Is Shanmati online? Shanmati, yeah, she is online. Shanmati, can you give me the answer? Okay, if you cannot give me the answer, the question passes to Shalini. Shalini, yes. Give me the answer, Shalini. Yes, DS, very good, very good. Is it the correct answer, SDS? All of you agree with Shalini? Anybody have any other different answer? Why? Now tell me the reason. Darshana, you told me yes. What is the reason? Why SDS is only used for preparation of animal cell extract? What is the reason for that? Can you give me the reason? Darshana, can you give me the reason why we are using SDS for preparation of animal cell extract? Just type the reason in the comment box. Why? Okay, Darshana, you can give. You only know SDS is used. Okay, what about Priya R? Priya R, you also told me yes. Why SDS is used for the preparation of animal cell extract? Can you give me the answer in the comment box? Priya R, can you give me the answer? Why SDS is used? Why? Anybody from the participants? Because animal cell does not contain cell wall. Very good, Shalini. That's it. Because it does not have a cell wall, and SDS can easily break lipids in the cell membrane. Excellent. Very good. Yeah, so we are moving on to the next question. I will call a participant's name. Don't answer in the comment box. Second question: a widely used physical method for bacterial cell lysate preparation is dash. Once again, the second question: a widely used physical method for bacterial cell lysate preparation. I have already told you, you have to go for the keywords in the question. So here, widely used physical method for bacterial cell lysate preparation. Now, options are: option A, mortar and pestle; option B, ultrasonication; option C, grinding; and option D, centrifugation. And I want the answer from our new participant, Vidushi. Can you give me the answer, Vidushi? Vidushi, can you give me the answer? widely used physical method for bacterial cell lysate preparation. Vidushi has given me the answer, centrifugation. Any other answers? Anybody? Anybody else? Any other answer? Shalini has told B, ultrasonication or ultrasonication. Okay, don't go for that, because you can, okay, you cannot take two options here. Why? I will tell you. I have told you okay, if you are writing mortar and pestle, it is a partially correct answer. I cannot tell you fully correct, because mortar and pestle is mainly used for plant cell extract. Already I have told you. Now D, centrifugation. Darshana, is it centrifugation, Darshana? Physical method, physical method. You are using physical method and chemical method. Physical method involves ultrasonication, all those things. Yeah, widely, I have asked a widely used method. A, it means one method. A means one. Then a widely used physical method for bacterial. I have told you bacterial cell lysate preparation. For bacterial cell lysate preparation, there is only a single widely used physical method, nothing but ultrasonication. Now, Darshana, why you write centrifugation? I don't know. See, centrifugation we are using in between in order to get the, pellet, remove the pellet, take the supernatant, or remove the supernatant, take the pellet. For that you are using centrifugation. It is not a widely used physical method. No, that's a wrong answer, Darshana. You have mistaken. Fine. Is it clear now? Is it clear? Is it clear now, this question? A. That's what you, when you get any question, not this question, any question, just stick on to the keywords. A means one method, widely used, okay. Physical method, fine. Bacterial preparation. Sir, I have a test in my college by 7:20. Please, you can leave, Shalini. Please, you can leave, please. That's fine, that's fine. Please carry on. Yeah, Maunia, you are also having a test. Okay, those who want to leave, please leave. I have got maybe one or two more questions. Those you want to leave, you have any other option, you can please leave. Okay, I'm just moving on to my next question. Yeah, question number 3. Again, I am going to read. Don't answer. Plasmids are larger than chromosomal DNA. Fine, it's a statement. Now, option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, insufficient data. Option D, irrelevant data. Plasmids are larger than chromosomal DNA. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, insufficient data. Option D, irrelevant data. Now, I want the answer from, again, Vidushi, our new participant. Give me the answer in comment box, Vidushi. Give me the answer in comment box, Vidushi. Plasmids are larger than chromosomal DNA. True, false, insufficient data, irrelevant data. It's a direct question. It's a direct question. Vidushi, can you answer? Okay, then the question I pass on to Sudha. Sudha, can you answer? Plasmids are larger than chromosomal DNA. True, false, insufficient data, irrelevant data. Yes, I got one answer in the comment box. Yeah, very good. False. Is it false, Vidushi? You only answered. Is there any other answer from other two participants? Any other answer from other two participants? Sudha or Prema Kumari, any other answer? See, Prema Kumari, is it insufficient data? Why you are going for insufficient data? It's a statement. Plasmids are larger than chromosomal DNA. It's a statement. So while I was taking the topic, I told you the separation of plasmids based on size is that plasmids are always smaller than chromosomal DNA. If the chromosomal DNA is broken into very small fragments, maybe, then also the possibility is very less. Fine. Plasmids are always smaller because, for example, in the case of E. coli cell, 8% is only the plasmid size. Rest is the chromosomal. Rest 92% is nothing but the chromosomal DNA. Similarly, in many of the bacteria, plasmids are always smaller than chromosomal DNA. It's a fact actually. It is not insufficient or irrelevant. It's a fact. That's why the statement is false. If the statement is plasmids are smaller than chromosomal DNA, then the statement is true. Clear? Prema Kumari, is it clear? Fine. Good, good. Okay, moving on to the next question. Yeah, one more question. Only last question. Okay. Dash is not used in plasmid DNA preparation. SDS, lysozyme, Triton-X, sucrose. And I need the answer from Prema Kumari. Can you answer? Dash is not used. Commonly used in plasmid DNA preparation. Dash. SDS, lysozyme, Triton-X, sucrose. It's a confusing question, bit confusing, because exceptions are there, but still. Yeah, Prema Kumari, A, SDS, Vidushi, SDS, very good. Why? Because SDS is ionic in nature. If we are using SDS, there is a possibility that it may lead to chromosomal DNA disintegration. As a result, we are not commonly using SDS. Instead of SDS, we are using non-ionic agents such as Triton-X. But in certain cases, it depends upon the protocol. In some protocol, they may also use SDS as well. But commonly, we are using Triton-X, whereas lysozyme and DDTA we are always using for plasmid DNA preparation in the presence of 25% sucrose. Clear? So with that, our today's class comes to an end, and over to the organizers.
Oh, okay, sir. Students, if you have any doubts regarding today's topic, you can ask in the comment section. Sir has already explained topic. I hope it will be all clear to you. Otherwise, you can just comment yes in the comment section if you have no doubts. Okay, Vidushi. Okay. I want more replies. Please just reply to me. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, if you don't have any doubts, you can just comment yes in the comment section.
Only one more participant now, Sudha. One more participant.
Okay, that's all for today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. And once again, I would like to repeat. So those who not registered still, they can register by 10th November. And from 10th November onwards, we are going to begin our structure class. And we will not upload. If you're thinking you will get the videos from YouTube, let me tell you, we are going to privatize all this video. Those who will be registered, from them only the video will be available. So keep in mind, and if you are interested to join, please join before 10th November, okay? And you will get concession of 500 rupees if you join before 8 November, and you can pay in the installment also, just like 4,000 rupees in first term, and second term you can pay in 3,500, okay? So, and those who are attending our classes, please be regular and please be consistency. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed. Now you may leave the meeting. Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was really informative.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Arvideep, now